Hello, and welcome back to yet another video. This is the 34th episode in a Naruto Uzumaki story in which a few little changes might have a significant impact. Knowledge provided early in Naruto's career converted him from a hopeless loser to a powerful and skilled shinobi. Historical differences that have long ago passed have resulted in a totally different consequence than we imagined. After you've finished watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. To begin, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get the party started. Naruto woke up to find himself in a strangely enviable position. With a soft pillow against his head, he craned his neck to the left and looked at the blonde woman whose hair, normally done in a series of 4 braided ponytails, slept soundly against his shoulder. Then he looked in the other direction, at the cute brunette who slept peacefully, eyes closed and mouth parted. Finally, he looked down. Akane and Yugito were sleeping on his chest, somehow able to curl around each other on top of him. They were kind of heavy, but he would never tell them that out loud. As the warmth from 4 beauties surrounded him, Naruto slowly gathered his thoughts, which were muddled from the body heat emitting from the naked bodies enclosing on him on all sides like a cocoon. A month had passed since Orochimaru manipulated Iwa and Kumo into attacking Konoha. 1 month since he had attacked the village, put Tsunade into a coma, and killed a man called Danzo. Repairs to the damaged infrastructure had been completed. The village itself now looked as it always had. However, the loss of life could not be masked. So many people had died in the attack from Oto that numerous buildings now lay abandoned. The old bakery that Naruto would buy bread from no longer had its baker. A small shop selling musical instruments had lost all of its employees and was now vacant. Apartment buildings, houses, condominiums. All vacant because the people who used to live there were gone. Naruto had been working himself to the bone, contacting all of the individuals in Jiraiya's spy network, which he was now maintaining, in order to locate Orochimaru. It was a slow-going process. Communication with the network was done through code. While Naruto had been taught how to decode messages from each person, it took him longer than it would have if Jiraiya had been the one doing it. Tsunade still hadn't woken up. That said, they had at least discovered the means through which Orochimaru had implanted moles into Konoha. Chakra needles with powerful seals were embedded into the spinal column. These needles redirected signals sent to and from the brain, overriding the brain's commands and sending their own commands to the body, allowing the one who made the seal to control the person. It was like puppetry without the use of chakra strings. As a side note, the needles were destroyed when a person died, which was why Inoki Yamanaka had missed them the first time around. As Naruto let these thoughts wash over him, a soft groan alerted him to one of the girls waking up. He looked over and saw Tamari slowly blinking her eyes. "Morning," he said softly. "Good morning." Tamari smiled as she kissed him, but then she pulled back, and sat up. Heedless of the fact that her perky breasts were on display, she stretched her arms and groaned again. Naruto let himself admire the way her nipples stiffened from the chilly morning air. "I'm really sore. You were a beast last night?" Sorry?" Shaking her head, Tamari smiled at his apology. "That was a compliment. I don't know any man who can have sex with 4 women at once. The benefit of shadow clones, I guess." Naruto shrugged. "Can you please help me wake up everyone else?" "Sure." Tamari graced him with an amused smile. Naruto and Tamari woke the other 3 women on their bed, and each one reacted similarly to Tamari, expressing how sore they felt. Tenten was even walking with a pronounced limp. Fortunately, none of them seemed to blame him, which he guessed was good. After taking a shower, getting dressed, and having a quick breakfast, Naruto and the others got a start on their day. Tamari was currently staying here with a token force from Suna. Gaara had expressed his concern given Konoha's state and ordered 200 of his ninja to remain in Konoha. Likewise, as an expression of apology, the Raikage had sent 100 of the ninja who'd helped repel Iwa to protect Konoha indefinitely. Yugito, Daru, Samui, Karu and Amoi were a part of that group. Since Tamari and Yugito were needed at their respective posts, they left after giving him a kiss goodbye. Tenten and Akane, on the other hand, were staying with him. Tenten was even taking time off from her active ninja duties to help him. "I'm guessing we have more letters to decode?" she asked as they were on their way to the information and receiving center. "Yeah." Naruto could not help but feel tired as he thought of the work ahead of them. A deep ache permeated his bones at the thought. He wanted to go back to sleep. "There are still several messages that need to be decoded." "You mean several dozen?" Akane shook her head. "That Jiraiya had a massive spy network. I've never been so sick of letters." He gave her a graceless smile filled with his own annoyance. "You're not the only one." Every day since Konoha's near destruction, Naruto had been sifting through reports sent to him from spies all across the elemental nations. He received numerous reports every day. The network his sensei had created was working overtime to send almost weekly reports on anything strange going on. The information and receiving center was a modern structure that was 4 stories tall. Longer than it was wide, the building had stairs on the outside leading up. There were 6 stairs in total. The innermost stairs close to the main entrance where people who wanted to hire were received led to the 2nd floor, while the second set immediately outside of those ones led to floor 3. The last set of stairs led to the 4th floor. Naruto, Akane, and Tenten headed to the 4th floor. Several ninja were already present when they entered, but it looked like most of them were there to receive missions. Naruto greeted a few when they spoke up. However, his mind was currently focused on thinking of the tasks ahead of him. His destination was not the mission receiving desk but the communication station. He walked up to the station in question, which an older ninja was manning. When the man saw him, a wry smile formed on his lips. "Here for another load?" the old ninja asked. Naruto almost groaned. "That's right. Wait just a second. The hall today is a bit bigger than usual." Naruto grimaced as the man wandered over to the back and unlocked a container. He grabbed a small circular knob, pushed it in, turned it, and then pulled. The container came out and the man hauled it over to the station. Looking at the container now revealed that it was square-shaped with rounded edges and filled to the brim with scrolls and letters. "Here you are," the man said. "Gee, thanks," Naruto mumbled as he lifted the box and wandered off with Akane and Tenten. Since they weren't allowed to take these containers back home, Naruto, Akane, and Tenten journeyed into one of the unused rooms and sat down at a long table. "Alright," Naruto released a heavy sigh as he stared at the container. "Let's get to work." "I'm not looking forward to this," Akane muttered in distaste as she grabbed a letter. Tenten followed suit. "I'm not very good at decoding, but I can at least help sort them for you." "Thanks." Tenten and Akane were working together since they weren't as skilled at this as he was. Akane knew how to decode the letters thanks to Naruto, but Tenten was still learning. All messages were written using a form of code. To solve the code, one would have to figure out what coding method was being used, and then use the corresponding decoding method to reveal the contents of the message. Jiraiya had drilled all of the decoding methods his informants used into him, but that didn't make decoding them any easier. None of the messages had names attached to them. Naruto had no idea which letter had been sent by who. This meant that he had to apply each coding method to a message until he got a match, which meant decoding even one message could take anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour. There were, after all, over 100 different decoding methods used by Jiraiya's informants. Time passed slowly for them, but they eventually were able to finish decoding all the messages. Sadly, none of them contained the information they wanted. Orochimaru's whereabouts were still unknown. "Well, that was useless," Akane mumbled as she stretched her arms. "Orochimaru certainly knows how to hide," Tenten agreed. "No wonder he's called a snake." Since they were finished decoding, Naruto, Akane, and Tenten stopped to get lunch before heading off to the training ground. They weren't eating at Icarus this time. Akane and Tenten had vetoed his proposition before he'd even had a chance to propose it. The restaurant they ate at today was owned by the Akimichi clan. This restaurant specialized in sukiyaki, a hot pot dish that consisted of thinly sliced beef, which was slowly cooked or simmered, alongside vegetables and other ingredients. As such, there was a large pot in the center of this table. A cooking unit underneath the pot caused the ingredients to simmer inside, releasing steam from which the scent of soy sauce, sugar, and mirin wafted. "I wonder where he could be," Naruto pondered out loud as he leaned against the booth. Jiraiya's informants are spread all across the elemental nations. They're literally located in every country. Surely with all these people, one of them would be able to find information on such a powerful individual. "It looks like Orochimaru has abandoned a lot of his bases, though," Akane pointed out. "We've already ransacked several and found nothing." While Akane said we, she was really talking about the Anbu. After discovering the location of several bases used by Orochimaru, Kakashi had sent out a team of Anbu to infiltrate 16 bases that had been discovered by Jiraiya's informants. Sadly, all of them had turned up empty. According to the team sent out, each one had been completely cleaned out, leaving no trace of Orochimaru. "This is beginning to feel like a pointless endeavor," Naruto said. "In that case, maybe we should do something different." Akane placed her hands on the table and eyed Naruto as she and Tenten sat across from him. "I've been meaning to bring this up, but I think it's about time you confronted Yami." Her words startled him, causing Naruto to close his eyes and take a slow, shuddering breath. "Why do you say that?" Akane gave him a look that all but screamed, "Don't try to play ignorant. Naruto, even if you did find Orochimaru, as you are right now, you do not have the strength to defeat him," she said. According to the Hokage, Orochimaru now has a Mangekyo Sharingan. If that is true, not only is he going to be a great deal more powerful than he used to be, but my abilities will also be limited. For whatever reason, that blasted eye has the ability to subjugate me, so I won't be of much help battling against him. A woman wearing a kimono soon came up to their table. In her hands was a tray filled with numerous dishes. She downed several bowls of raw beaten eggs in front of them, and then placed 2 jars of sake on the table. They thanked her as she left. The 3 of them began eating once the woman vanished. Naruto snapped his chopsticks in half, and then went straight for the beef. He grabbed a small bit of thinly sliced beef, dipped it into the raw eggs, and placed it in his mouth. As the burst of flavor filled his tongue, Naruto decided that while sukiyaki was nowhere near as good as ramen, it wasn't bad either. "So, you think I should confront Yami?" Naruto restarted their conversation. "I think you need to gain full control over your abilities," Akane said as she snagged a piece of tofu. She dipped it into the raw eggs, blew on it, and then stuffed it into her mouth. After swallowing, she continued, "You won't be able to bring out the full power of your hybrid form unless you can subjugate your other half. And if you want to stand a chance of defeating Orochimaru, you are going to need to master this power." Naruto knew she was right. He knew that. However, he still didn't like it. "How would I go about defeating him?" asked Naruto. "The seal is gone, so it's not like I can enter it and fight him anymore. Why don't we ask Yugito if she knows of a way to help you?" asked Tenten. "I know you aren't a Jinchuriki anymore, but maybe she and Kirabai know something that could help." After pondering her words for a minute, Naruto gave a slow nod. "Yeah. Okay. We'll ask her after training." To keep his skills sharp, Naruto trained with Yugito and Temari in the afternoon. Tenten sometimes joined them, but she also had to man her father's store. Akane never joined them. He'd asked her why she didn't train once, and she said there was no need to since she already had perfect control over her powers. She would simply sit underneath the tree and watch. Training often consisted of Temari and Yugito teaming up to fight him. They would use teamwork to attack him in unison. What's more, Naruto would always have a handicap such as not being able to use jutsu or only being able to use ninjutsu, which forced him to push his abilities to the brink. By the time his training was over, Naruto was exhausted. As he lay on the grass with his eyes closed and his head on Akane's lap, Naruto vaguely remembered the conversation at the restaurant. "Hey, Yugi," he said suddenly. "What's up?" asked Yugito, who sat beside them underneath the tree. Temari was also present, but she didn't have their stamina and fallen asleep after training. She was resting her head against Yugito's shoulder. "Do you know of a way to battle one's dark self?" What?" Yugito looked at him in a stupefied manner. What I mean is, say there is someone who has a dark version of themselves sealed away inside of them. Do you know of a method to confront this dark version?" Yugito crossed her arms and lowered her head, her brow furrowing for a moment. Naruto glanced at Akane. The woman sensed him looking at her, and looked down at him, though he could only see her eyes because her boobs were in the way. She shrugged and went back to looking at Yugito, whose face had finally cleared up. "I think I know what you were asking," she said at last. "I don't know if this is what you want, but there is a place where Killer Bee and I trained to control our Baijuo. It's called the Falls of Truth. It's a waterfall that can reflect one's true self, forcing them to confront and overcome their own darkness. This is actually the first step in learning how to control a Baijuo. Can you send a message to Kirabai and ask him if he'd be able to take me there?" asked Naruto. "I can. Thank you." "You're welcome," Yugito said before she looked at the darkening sky. "It's getting kind of late. We should probably head home." "Yeah." Removing his head from Akane's lap, Naruto scooped Temari into his arms and stood up. The blonde woman's legs swayed a bit, but she didn't wake up. She just shifted around until she got comfortable. With Yugito and Akane in tow, the 4 of them traveled back to Naruto's place. Zox 2 more months passed. During that time, 16 of Orochimaru's hideouts had been found, but each one appeared to have already been abandoned. All of the messages from Jiraiya's informants had likewise been useless in helping discover the man's location. Tsunade still had yet to awaken. Kakashi was acting as interim Hokage until she woke up. As Naruto entered the room alongside Akane and Yugito, he found the man in question sitting behind the Hokage's desk, reading over various reports and signing documents. "You called, Kakashi?" asked Naruto as they stepped into the room. "I did. Kakashi smiled at them, though there was a dark circle under his eye. I remember a while ago how you mentioned wanting to conquer the darkness inside of you. As you know, we sent a message to the Hokage. We finally received a reply from him, which grants you permission to head for the Falls of Truth. Naruto felt his shoulders slowly ease as Yugito graced him with a smile. Akane didn't smile, but she at least appeared satisfied. That said, Kakashi continued, the location to the Falls of Truth is apparently a well-kept secret of Kumagakure. While you are being granted special permission to travel there, we're not being allowed to send an escort with you. You'll be traveling alongside Kirabai and Yugito. What about Akane? Naruto asked with a frown. She will have to remain in Konoha, Kakashi said. Akane did not look pleased to hear that, but she also didn't say anything. Remembering her stories, Naruto was sure she would have tried to manipulate or force Kakashi into letting her go until recently. That she wasn't showed she had probably changed a lot. When do we leave? Asked Naruto. You'll be leaving tomorrow, Kakashi said. Yugito and Team Samui will escort you to Kumo, and then you, Yugito, and Kirabai will travel to the Falls of Truth. I understand, Naruto said. Zox the next morning was a rush to get ready. Naruto ended up oversleeping because Akane, Tenten, and Temari had decided to keep him up all night. According to them, it wasn't fair that Yugito would have him all to herself. They'd thoroughly exhausted him. After a light breakfast, Naruto, once more dressed in his black and orange clothing, headed for the gates of Konoha. The girls did not come with him. They said the idea of saying goodbye after a night of passionate sex was kind of pointless, so Naruto went there himself and met up with the members of Team Samui and Yugito, who had not joined them last night. Why the hell do you look so worn out? Asked Kuro the moment he arrived. Do you really want to know? Asked Naruto. Let's not get into that, Samui said. I'm pretty sure I can guess what happened. Karu, stay cool and don't say anything stupid. I wasn't going to say anything stupid. Amoe, a lollipop in his mouth, frowned. Now that Kuro has said it, I'm kind of curious to know why you look so tired too. Were you up training late last night? I sometimes get jitters myself when I'm about to go on a mission of great importance, so I occasionally go out and train in the middle of the night. No, that wasn't it, Naruto said. He didn't speak up again. His sex life was a very private affair, and these people had no need to learn about it. Smiling as though she knew exactly what he was thinking, Yugito gestured for everyone. Alright, people. Let's get a move on. The trip from Konoha to Kumo took exactly 1 month. Not only was Hinokuni a large nation, but to reach Kumo, they had to travel through Otogakure and Kaminari no Kuni, which were both located northeast of Hinokuni. There were fortunately no problems on the way, which meant the group arrived in Kumo without incident. It felt a little weird coming back to Kumo after so little time had passed. The village wasn't completely repaired from the battle that Naruto and Akane had with the Hokage, but repairs were a bit more difficult when the buildings were built into a mountain. It wasn't like Konoha's buildings, which were made from a combination of wood and bricks. Yo, Naruto. How's it go? The moment he entered the Hokage's office, Naruto was given an enthusiastic greeting by Kirabai. Who sat on the bench and lifted weights like always, looked annoyed by his brother's bad rapping habits. However, he ignored that in favor of focusing on Naruto. I've heard about your problem already, so I know what's going on, I said. There is a darkness inside of you that you need to master. That's right. Naruto nodded. I grunted. We do have a method for confronting one's own darkness and overcoming it. Tomorrow, I'll have and Yugito take you to the place where you can do that. For now, you should get some rest. Rest isn't what he needs, Kirabai suddenly said. A nice hot meal and some good drink is how a ninja relaxes when in town, and then we can come up with some new rhymes. Ya feel me, fool? Don't call me a fool. Naruto, Yugito, Samui, Karu and Amoe winced as the Hokage leapt to his feet and performed a lariat on his brother. The direct hit to Kirabai's chest created a loud bang that echoed around them. Following this, Kirabai was slammed back first into the floor, where he began twitching and moaning. Glared at his adoptive brother before glancing at everyone else. Yugito, I'll leave it to you to show him where he can stay. Yes, Lord Hokage. Yugito gave him a smart salute before tugging on Naruto's hand. Come on. You can stay at my place tonight. Yeah. Okay. Naruto let himself be pulled out of the Hokage's office. He didn't look back. It was probably a good thing because it meant he missed the shocked looks on Kuro and Amoe's face. Did she just say he was staying at her place? Asked Kuro. That's what I heard, Amoe said. Samui just sighed. Zox Naruto, Naruto! Naruto! Naruto grunted as he pistoned into Yugito from behind. The woman was pressing her hands against the wall as he held her hips, pushing his dick into her sodden entrance. Every time he shoved his throbbing cock into her, she would cry out his name, and the walls around him would tighten as though trying to keep him from leaving. Fuck. You're so tight. Is this his Jinchuriki thing? How should I know? Oh. Yugito's back arced into his chest as Naruto leaned over, removed his hands from her hips, and began fondling her breasts. Her shirt hadn't been removed. However, the blouse had, and the black shirt she wore underneath it was rolled up to expose her breasts to the cold air of Kumo. Her tits were slick with sweat. While they weren't massive, they were still too large for him to hold completely, which meant his fingers sank into the elastic flesh. The combination of their current slickness and bouncing made it a bit hard to really feel them, at least until he grabbed her nipples between his fingers. Don't pinch me like that. You're going to drive me crazy. Naruto smiled as he pinched Yugito's nipples, and then pulled on them. I want to drive you crazy, though. Ha. Ah. Ha. I can't take much more of this. By this point, Naruto and Yugito were releasing heavy, nasally gasps as they tried to suck in oxygen. From his position, Naruto had a perfect view of her firm back muscles and tight ass. Her breasts weren't as visible since he was behind her, but he could feel her hardened nipples as he played with them. Naruto. Yugito craned her neck to look at him. Her eyes were clouded over and hazy. Kiss. I want a kiss. Now. Please. Naruto didn't speak as he leaned over and kissed her. Now back to chest. There was no space between them as they shared a sloppy kiss. His hips smacked against her tight tush every time he thrust himself inside of her. Neither of them were bothered by the drool their actions released, nor were they concerned with the juices flowing from Yugito's pussy as he continued churning her insides. When he felt his end coming, Naruto stopped kissing Yugito and placed his hands underneath her thighs. Naruto? What are you? Yugito's words were cut off when Naruto lifted her into the air, spread her legs apart, and fucked her from this new position. She released a loud cry as she fell backwards against him. He grunted and turned around to use the wall to stabilize himself, and then continued to thrust his hips. The sound of their skin slapping together mixed in with his and Yugito's moans and grunts, until not ya. Naruto gritted his teeth as he pressed his face against Yugito's shoulder. The almost unquantifiable tightness as she milked him caused Naruto to release everything he had. Their bodies shook in unison for a moment, but then, as their strength ebbed, Naruto slid down the wall and onto the floor. His now flaccid dick slid out of Yugito with a wet plop, and their combined juices spilled from her pussy and created a small puddle. As the two of them caught their breath, Naruto slowly relaxed. You were pretty aggressive today, he muttered as he kissed Yugito's shoulder. She turned her head to smile at him. I haven't been able to sleep with you during our travels thanks to the others. Let's just say I wanted to make up for lost time. That's as good an excuse as any. After remaining on the floor for several minutes, the two regained enough strength to rinse off in the shower and crawl in bed. As they snuggled underneath the covers, a thought occurred to him. What's the Falls of Truth like? He asked. It's just a waterfall, Yugito muttered in a drowsy voice. It isn't even that big. However, for some reason, it can transport a person into their own mind. That's how they're able to confront themselves. I see. You did this, right? What was it like for you? For me? Yugito shifted against him as though getting more comfortable. For me, it was like fun, ya. Fu what? Naruto asked. No one answered. Yugito? When the woman didn't answer him, he looked down and discovered that she had curled up against him like a cat. She's asleep. Realizing he was not going to get any answers out of her today, Naruto closed his eyes and drifted off. Zokusakatsuki had numerous hidden bases scattered throughout the elemental nations. Of course, they weren't using them anymore, which was why Orochimaru had decided to use them for himself. Konoha had been trying to track him down ever since his attack on their village, and it seemed that Naruto Brat was using Jiraiya's spy network to search for him. He'd been careful not to tip the network off by leading them to his bases. He wondered if the Anbu who'd ransacked them were disappointed when they discovered that each base had been abandoned. The thought made him chuckle. As he wandered down the winding tunnel, he pondered his next move as the footsteps of himself and his subordinate rang out. Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto began, what should we do now? Konoha is after us, and I'm pretty sure that both Kumo and Suna have joined forces with them. Indeed. Orochimaru nodded, unconcerned as he turned a corner. The tunnel they were following wound around and around like a coiled snake as it led deeper underground. I will have to deal with them eventually if I want to finally find the time to study all the jutsu in the world. Ever since he'd been denied the seat of 4th Hokage, Orochimaru's goal had been discovering all the world's jutsu. He was a researcher at heart. He loved discovering new things. That was why he experimented on all those people and himself. However, it had never been enough, and sadly, he couldn't overtly begin kidnapping too many people or the leaders of the world would catch on. If he could just wipe them all out, then maybe he could take over the elemental nations himself. That would be nice. Then he could experiment all he wanted. The pathway finally came to an end. A large cavern opened up before him. Orochimaru gazed around the space, which contained the massive roots of a tree. The demonic statue used by Akatsuki to seal away the Baijiu was also there. However, what caught Orochimaru's attention was the bed located several meters from the tree. Cables ran from the bed to the tree, but they weren't attached to anything. He reached out and placed a hand against the tree, studying it with both his chakra and his vision. Now that he was looking at it more closely, it resembled more of a flower than a tree. He sensed Hashirama's chakra within it as well. Also, it looked like there were pods, or maybe cocoons, hanging from it. A smile rose to his face as he realized what this was. "Yes, I think this will do nicely." "Lord Orochimaru?" Kabuto questioned. "It's nothing." Orochimaru pulled his hand off the tree and continued walking. He eventually came into a room that looked like a laboratory. It was a fairly plain room that had been sterilized. There was a single bed in the center. Inside the lab was a massive wall with the Uchiha clan symbol on top of it. As he eyed the wall, which contained a massive collection of Sharingan eyes, laughter bubbled from his throat. With this lab, he would easily be able to study all the world's jutsu. And he would also be able to wage his war on the elemental nations. Zox the ship Naruto was en route across the water, back and forth, back and forth. It was a damn good thing he didn't get motion sickness. Poor Yugito was currently holed up in their room. The last he saw of her, the girl had been leaning over their toilet. He had no clue where they were exactly. After leaving Kumo, Kirabai had led him and Yugito to this coastline, where a boat was waiting for them. The boat they were on wasn't very big, but he wouldn't call it small either. From stern to bow, he would have said it was probably 20 meters long. Aside from himself, Kirabai, and Yugito, there were the ninja who manned the boat. It was a single squad of 4, 3 Chunin and 1 Jonin. A thick fog surrounded their ship. As he leaned against the railing and tried to look into the fog, Naruto found himself squinting. Nope. He couldn't see a damn thing. "I wonder how long it will take to reach this place where I'm going to be training." "It won't take long now," one of the ninjas said. "Just be patient," Naruto sighed. "I am being patient." "Hey, ya fools. Killer Bee is in the house. We better get there soon cause I'm waiting for my chance to shine." "Gonna help Mr. Nine?" "Yeah." As the loud voice rang out across the boat, Naruto turned his head to see Kirabai strolling out of the ship's interior. A sickly Yugito was trailing behind him. She looked like she'd seen better days. When compared with Kirabai, who was bright as sunshine and spouting rhymes like they were going out of style, the poor girl looked like she'd taken one step into the grave. "We're coming up on it now," the ninja from before said. "Take a look." At those words, Naruto turned around and glared into the fog, which soon cleared up to reveal an island that looked like the back of a gigantic porcupine. All he could see were massive stakes jutting from the island. Several creatures that had an avian appearance were impaled upon a few of those stakes. There were also a number of corpses floating in the water. As he gazed upon the place, which looked very much like the Forest of Death back in Konoha, an unsettling knot tied up his stomach. He turned back around. "This is where the Falls of Truth is supposed to be?" The ninja just grinned. "That's right. Don't worry. I know it looks rough, but so long as you don't provoke any of the animals in there, it'll be alright. There's just one creature here that you need to worry about?" Naruto gave the man a dubious look. "And which creature is that?" Before anyone could respond to his question, the water beneath their boat was disturbed. Several bulges appeared like someone was using a water jutsu. However, when the water broke, what appeared before them was not a jutsu but numerous massive tentacles. Each one easily towered over the boat. They had suction cups that were about the same size as him. In other words, they were really freaking big. The waves created from the tentacles rising above the water's surface caused the boat to rock. Yugito, who was quite pale, suddenly turned green as she stumbled across the boat. Naruto rushed over to her side and wrapped an arm around her waist, keeping the woman from going overboard. "You okay, Yugi?" "Ugh. I've been better." As the massive tentacles rose from the water, Another, even larger bulge suddenly appeared before, like a fire dragon breaking through the sky. A massive head suddenly burst out of the water. It was long and sleek. Staring at the massive body, Naruto realized that it was a giant squid. "You guys have giant squid here?" Naruto asked. "Obviously." The man shouted. "Damn, and this is the one I was going to warn you about." The massive squid looked quite angry. Several of its tentacles shot out as though to try and smash their ship apart, but before that could happen, 8 tentacles suddenly emerged from Kirobai's back and smacked the tentacles away. "Quit squidding around, ya fool. Go back to the deep and fall asleep." Without warning, Kirobai leapt into the air, and then his body transformed. Having seen this several times already, Naruto wasn't too shocked when the man was engulfed in chakra, which then solidified until it became the massive body of an ox with 8 tentacle-like tails. The now fully transformed Kirobai rushed through the water, creating waves that slammed into the boat. Naruto groaned when Yugito suddenly vomited all over his shirt. However, he merely rubbed her back as her fellow Jinchuriki slammed a fist into the squid's face, pushing it down into the water and forcing it to retreat. Sorry, Naruto," Yugito mumbled as she dry heaved. I'll wash it when we climb ashore," Naruto said. With the squid gone, the journey continued. Naruto changed shirts. Sadly, he couldn't get rid of the smell. As they drew closer to the island, a voice suddenly shouted from far above them. "Welcome, everyone. I've been waiting for you." The man who appeared on one of the spikes had dark brown, spiky hair and dark eyes. He wore the standard outfit of a Kumagakure ninja and a light gray scarf around his neck. While he didn't look that unusual, he did have a dark green mark that ran down the bridge of his nose. "I am Motoi. I'll be your escort from here on out. Allow me to show you to the rooms you'll be staying in for the duration of your time here." The boat soon came ashore, and everyone climbed off. Naruto lifted Yugito into a princess carry as he left the boat. Despite how he smelled a little like vomit, she didn't seem bothered as she burrowed her face into his neck. Once they entered the forest proper, Naruto could see that it really did look a lot like the Forest of Death. There were thick trees that would require at least 20 shadow clones to wrap around the trunks of. These trees had large roots that crawled out of the earth, twisting around each other to form odd shapes. Above their heads were numerous vines, twisting, turning, and warping around each other. Grass covered much of the path they walked on. A loud roar echoed around the group as they stepped further into the forest. Naruto looked up with the others and gawked when he found a gigantic gorilla easily 10 times his height glaring down at them. The mighty beast smashed his fists against his chest. It looked seconds away from attacking them. "Don't worry, King." Kirobai stepped forward. "These guys are with me." The gorilla that Kirobai called King paused. It looked down at Kirobai, and then hopped off the branch it stood on, landing on the ground. Kirobai walked up to it and held out his fist. Oddly enough, King proceeded to fist bump the 8-tailed Jinchuriki as though they were best friends. "What's going on here?" Naruto wondered out loud. "Kirobai came here to train in how to use the Hichibi's power," Motoi said. "During that time where he was mastering the Hichibi's power, he tamed all of the beasts here. So long as he is around, none of the monsters will harm you." "Is that so?" Naruto muttered. Their journey soon continued uninterrupted, and it wasn't long before they reached the place where they would be staying. It didn't look like much. Made of a really old and worn-looking wood, if Naruto didn't know any better, he would have said it had been carved out from a tree. Just above the entrance was a single feature of the Hichibi's head protruding outward like it was trying to break free. Naruto didn't fail to notice that it was missing one of its horns just like the real one. The inside wasn't much better. Naruto wouldn't say it looked shabby out loud, but it definitely reminded him of the shabby interior of that training hall in the Forest of Death. Several tiles on the floor were broken. The paint on the wall was faded. Likewise, the doors were unadorned with any features. He guessed blandness was a trait for buildings like this, whose only purpose was to serve as a testing ground for the Chunin exams. "Alright." Motoi looked at everyone. "You may choose whichever rooms you like. There's a dining hall downstairs and you can eat whenever you want. I heard you're here to train, so I'll leave you all to it." "It's been a long journey," Naruto said. "I suppose that means we should get some rest first." "That's right. Rest and relaxation is important for people who are on a vacation, ya fools," Kirobai said. "I'ma go up to my own room." "Naruto, ya fool, you take Yugito and get her all groomed." Naruto, Yugito still in his arms, watched as Kirobai wandered off on his own. He looked down at the woman he was carrying to see her tired expression. He chuckled. "Let's rest up," he said to her. Yugito looked up at him, smiled, and nodded as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Yes. Let's. Zox. After sleeping for an entire day, Naruto woke up bright and early the next morning and went down to the mess hall with Yugito. There wasn't anybody else there. However, as they conversed and ate together, several of the ninja who'd been with them on the boat did arrive eventually. I see the rumors are true. The man from before, who'd talked about the squid, sat down beside them and grinned. I'd heard that you two were in a relationship, but I wasn't sure I believed it until now. Naruto and Yugito glanced at each other, and then looked back at the man. It's true, Yugito said. Though it hasn't been long since we started dating. I'm surprised rumors spread so quickly. Well, you know. The man shrugged. There was a rumor that several people who live near your apartment heard you screaming in ecstasy one night, and the next morning, you two left together. That's where the rumors all started. While Yugito's cheeks turned a brilliant shade of red, Naruto did his best not to feel embarrassed. It was shameful that several people had heard them having sex. That said, what they had done wasn't something he was ashamed of. People need to mind their own business, he muttered quietly. The man just chuckled before settling down. In all seriousness, it is pretty strange to everyone, you know. A. Konoha ninja and Akumo ninja in a relationship? Until the Chunin exams in Konoha several years ago, our villages were always at war with each other. Even though we're allies now, it's still weird to imagine two ninja from different villages dating, especially after what happened to Hokage. Naruto nodded as he listened to the man, but the fact remained that he and Yugito had bonded before she, Kirabai, and the Hokage were manipulated by a genjutsu. His feelings weren't going to change because of that. After finishing breakfast, Naruto and Yugito decided to wander outside. They were going to begin training soon, but Yugito said she wanted to show him the island before that happened. Naruto didn't object. It would be good to familiarize himself with the place. As they were wandering through the forest, a loud crashing noise echoed all around them, causing the two to stop. Naruto cocked his head to the side, listening. Yugito merely pressed a hand to her face and sighed. What was that? He asked. It sounds like Kirabai is wrestling right now, she said. Naruto frowned. Wrestling? With who? Follow me. Yugito turned around and began walking off, and Naruto followed her. As they walked past several large trees, the space around them opened up, revealing a massive clearing where several bears were sitting around a circle. Naruto blinked several times. Kirabai was in the center of that circle along with what appeared to be a giant panda. Well, it was black and white like a panda. He didn't really know if it was a panda or another bear. I'm ready whenever you are, ya fool. Don't hold back or this Lord Jinchuriki is gonna make you feel regret. At those words, the panda rushed forward, claws out, and tried to smash into Kirabai. Naruto crouched on the ground as two tentacles shot out from behind the Jinchuriki's back and clamped down on the panda's hands. A brief struggle took place. However, it was clear from the onset who would win, and just as he expected, the panda was shoved out of the wrestling ring, which Naruto realized was actually a sumo ring. Kirabai is sumo wrestling with giant bears, he mumbled. Yugito shrugged. Didn't Motoi already tell you? Kirabai befriended all of the animals in this forest. Yeah, he did. Naruto shook his head. I just never expected to see something like this. As the two of them spoke, the bear seemed to notice their presence and suddenly stood up. Bristling fur gave them a dangerous appearance. A slight killing intent filled the air as the bears glared at him and Yugito. However, this also caused Kirabai to notice them. He grinned and, after patting the panda on the leg, he walked over to them. I see you're up and at 'em. Looks like Yugito is feeling refreshed. Would that be your doing, ya fool? All we did was sleep, Naruto said. He looked back at the bears, who seemed to have realized they were with Kirabai and sat back down. Having fun? In the sun, you know it. Kirabai turned his last question into a rhyme. We're about to begin training, Yugito said. Are you going to stay here, or will you be heading to the Falls of Truth with us? Kirabai looked back at the bears, all of whom tilted their heads, and then turned back to them. Since our mission here is to help Naruto make his dark half appear, I'll travel with you to the Falls of Truth and watch out for him, ya feel me? Sounds good. Yugito nodded. Then let's head off. With Kirabai now joining them, the trio made their way through the forest, until they reached the Falls of Truth. It really did look just like a regular waterfall. It wasn't very big. A small pond spread out at the bottom of the waterfall, and a single piece of land emerged from within the pond like an island. This is where you can face your dark self, Kirabai said. All you gotta do is sit on that island and stare into the waterfall. Then you'll enter your mind and face the dark, But be careful that you don't fall, ya fool. Naruto looked from Kirabai to Yugi Ito, who nodded at him. Seeing this, Naruto walked onto the water, and then stepped onto the island. He sat down, crossed his legs, and closed his eyes. Time seemed to stand still. It was inconsequential. What was probably only a few seconds seemed to extend into hours as he sat there with his eyes closed. However, all too soon and all too late, a voice emerged from within the darkness of his mind. "You finally came." Naruto opened his eyes to find a dark shadow standing behind the waterfall, an indistinct silhouette that he nevertheless recognized. The area around him had become thick with fog. He couldn't see anything beyond this pond and waterfall. Did that mean this was merely his mind creating a representation of the waterfall? "I didn't have much choice," Naruto said as he stood up. "I can't leave something like you hanging over my head." "Something like me?" The voice snorted. "Yes, I'm sure you hate seeing something so dark and disgusting inside of you. You never could admit that you're actually a horrible person. You could never admit that you hate the village and the people who live there. So dishonest with yourself. That isn't true at all." Naruto scowled. "Konoha is my home. It's true that I didn't get along with the villagers at first, but I worked hard to prove myself, and now I finally earned their acknowledgement and respect." The voice snorted once again. "Don't lie to yourself. You hate them. Even now, you wish you could kill all of them. Those idiots who only ever saw you as a monster. They never gave you the time of day when you were younger, yet the moment you display your strength, they suddenly have a change of heart. This is why Akane hates humans, you know. It's because they are all, without exception, superficial and shallow." As the voice continued talking, the water split and the figure walked out from behind the waterfall. He looked just like Naruto. His face, his height, his clothes, his build. It was like staring into a reflection. However, the reflection was distorted. While this person looked almost identical to Naruto, his eyes contained nothing but hatred and darkness. The normal whites of his sclera were an inky black, and his pupils were a dark red, a vibrant crimson that glistened like blood. Naruto scowled at him. "Do not talk about Hokage. You have no right." "I have every right," Yami shouted. "It's her fault that we were turned into monsters. If she had never attacked the village, we would have never been forced to endure the pain of being hated. While I hate the village for how we've been treated, I hate her even more." A sickening grin spread across Yami's face. "Don't deny it. You hate her as much as I do." "I don't." "You do. You and I are the same. All of your emotions are also my emotions. I'm through listening to you." Naruto's chakra surged from his body. "You and I will never come to an agreement. I'll just destroy you." "You can't destroy yourself," Yami shouted as his own chakra surged. The two of them glared at each other for a good while, but then, on some unspoken signal, they shot forward. A ferocious battle cry tore from their lips. The sounds were identical. Meeting in the middle, the two of them slammed their fists together. A ripple spread out from the point of impact. The disturbed water forced them to send more chakra down to their feet. However, that didn't stop them from beginning their battle. Yami threw a powerful punch at Naruto's middle. The fist was so fast the air around it rippled. An attack like that would have struck an average Jonin hard, but Naruto twisted his torso and brought up his leg, knocking the fist off course with his shin. Using that same leg, he launched a kick at Yami's side, but his dark half blocked it with a forearm. The meeting of leg and forearm echoed across the pond like someone kicking a training log with their full strength. Realizing that his attack had done nothing, Naruto retracted his leg, but he didn't move back. Instead he moved forward one step, brought up his other leg, and tried to kick Yami again. The attack was blocked. Another dull thudding noise echoed around them. Yami, not one to let this opportunity slip by, grabbed his leg. Naruto winced as the bones in his shin creaked. With a grunt, Yami lifted Naruto off the ground, spun around several times, and fluked him through the air. Before Naruto could even regain his bearings, several Yami clones appeared around him. Pain erupted in his back as a foot slammed into his spine. Then he received another sucker punch that lifted him higher into the air. At the apex of his ascent, Yami appeared above him, his body spinning on an axis as he extended his leg and slammed his heel into Naruto's head. Naruto's body disappeared in a puff of smoke. What Yami had hit was a log. Rasengan. A loud shout echoed from above, causing Yami to look up just in time to see Naruto descending, a Rasengan in his hands. Glaring, Yami created his own Rasengan and thrust it at Naruto. The two jutsu met in the middle and exploded with cataclysmic results. Both of them were flung away like ragdolls. Naruto flipped himself around several times and landed on the water. He glanced up. Several meters away was Yami, who also stood on the water. The two of them glared at each other, hatred burning in their eyes, and then they released another battle cry and launched themselves at each other once more. Zox Yu-Gi-Oh stood at the shore of the small pond, watching Naruto with a worried expression. She bit her lip, tapped her foot against the ground, and crossed her arms. "It's already been 20 minutes, she mumbled. Yo. It seems he's really hashing it out with his own darkness. This situation is quite the mess, Kirabai rapped. Yu-Gi-Oh sighed. Do you think he can really defeat his own darkness? Does the kitten lack confidence in her man? Kirabai asked. It isn't that I lack confidence in Naruto. Yu-Gi-Oh turned to look at the man who was even now sitting cross-legged on the small island before the Falls of Truth. He hadn't moved from that spot. In a soft voice, she finished her thoughts, I'm just worried. Kirabai crossed his arms and stared at Naruto for a while. Yu-Gi-Oh couldn't see his eyes since they were covered in shades. I don't think we need to worry about Naruto. He's a stubborn one, yo. He won't let the little darkness beat him. He'll devour that darkness and sing a hymn. Oh, that was pretty good. Kirabai pulled out a notebook and a pen, crouched down, and began writing something while mumbling to himself. Yu-Gi-Oh didn't even spare him a glance as she watched the blonde man, who was battling his dark half. Please be okay, Naruto. Zox Senpuken. Senpuken. Naruto and Yami thrust out their fists at the same time. A powerful blast of wind shot from their extended fists, traveled the distance between them, and exploded against each other. Powerful force winds collided and were pushed outward. The two identical figures were thrown back. Skidding along the water's surface, they covered their faces as wind and water lashed out everywhere. Gritting his teeth, Naruto went through a series of hand seals before shouting out the name of his jutsu. Futon, Rinkudan, Wind Release, Drilling Air Bullet. Naruto inhaled a deep breath, which caused his stomach to expand, and then pounded a fist against it. The external pressure forced a highly compressed ball of air from his mouth. It tore through the airspace, this sphere of pressurized air, moving so fast it left wakes in the water. Yami didn't return fire with the same jutsu. A swirling blue ball of chakra appeared in his hand, which he slammed into the air bullet. Rasengan. The Rasengan tore through the air bullet like it was nothing, blasting the jutsu apart. The moment the wind disturbed, Yami created a clone, which began feeding chakra into the Rasengan, making it grow even bigger. Seeing what Yami was doing, Naruto also created a clone, then created a Rasengan and had the clone feed chakra into it. As his jutsu grew to the size of his head, Naruto rushed forward at the same time as Yami. The two met in the center. They thrust out their hands, their jutsu colliding with each other, creating a massive explosion that sent them both flying. Naruto grunted as he hit the water's surface. Skipping along like a pebble thrown by Might Hokage, Naruto rolled through the air and across the water before hitting it for a final time with a brilliant splash. As he sunk beneath the surface, he shoved chakra into his hands and used them to climb back on top of the water. Yami did the same several meters away. The two of them stared at each other, rage and anger filling their eyes. This is getting ridiculous, Naruto mumbled out loud. Neither one of us is able to get the upper hand here. We have the same jutsu, the same strength, the same tactical knowledge. How am I supposed to beat this guy? Feel free to give up any time, Yami said with a grim smile as he stood up. Yami's face was covered in scrapes and bruises. His clothing was torn in some places. Blood leaked from cuts on his arms and legs where one of Naruto's jutsu had hit him. Of course, it wasn't like Naruto was in much better shape, he was also covered in cuts and bruises. This battle had been going on for a long time, though Naruto didn't know how long since time seemed skewed in this strange place. That said, in all the time they'd fought, neither he or Yami had been able to claim the upper hand. It was just as Naruto said. Their fighting style, attack patterns, tactics, jutsu, all of it was the same. Fighting against Yami was like fighting a reflection of himself. A reflection of myself. Naruto frowned as he thought about that single sentence. It was just one line. However, the more he thought about it, the more he thought this line encompassed him and Yami. He's a reflection of myself. He's me. He is. My inner thoughts. Gnashing his teeth together, Naruto recalled his past, all the times he'd been scorned, the times he'd been ignored, the way people spoke about him behind his back, telling their children not to go near him. Back when he'd been just a brat, his existence had been a lonely one, and all of it was thanks to the village. It was thanks to Konoha. It seems you finally get it, huh? A dark grin spread across Yami's face. All of my thoughts, all of my feelings. They are all a reflection of you. I am you. My thoughts, my feelings, my desires. They are yours because I am you. You can't defeat me. You're right. Naruto smiled as something within his mind clicked. Defeating you is impossible. You can't defeat yourself. That's why I won't defeat you. So you're giving up? Yami asked as if he couldn't believe his words. I'm not doing that either. Then what? Are we just going to stand here all day? Are we just going to stand around here in perpetuity? Two identical figures locked in a never-ending struggle? Give me a fucking break. I have no intention of remaining here, and I have no intention of being locked away in the dark again. Then it's a good thing I have no intention of locking you up, Naruto said. Then shut up and give me your body, Yami shouted as he rushed at Naruto, prepared to strike. Let me take over. Then I'll show those people in Konoha what true fear is. I'll make them suffer like they made us suffer. No, Naruto said as he spread out his arms, you won't. Yami's eyes widened as he slammed into Naruto. The force drove him back a little, but only by a step or two. Naruto embraced Yami, who remained stiff as a board, as though the action had stunned him. It looked like he was able to fool even himself. The thought made Naruto snicker. There's no need for either of us to go anywhere, Naruto said. You don't need to disappear or be locked away, and neither do I. I've been thinking about it for a long time now, ever since you first showed up, and I realized that you and I are the same. That's why. I accept you. Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. I accept all of them. I'm not going to let you remain in the dark space where I locked you away. You're staying here. Yami was silent for a long moment, unable to talk, unable to move. His arms remained at his sides. Then, finally, he spoke. You won't lock me away again? I won't lock you away. I can remain here? You're staying right here with me. I see. Yami sniffled. It was the only sign he revealed that he was crying. As he shed silent tears, his body soon wavered like a ghost. It became translucent before finally disappearing. Naruto opened the eyes that he had closed and stared at the Falls of Truth, the real Falls of Truth and not the illusionary world that he had journeyed to when facing Yami. After staring at the waterfall for a few seconds, he raised his hand, glancing at it as he clenched and unclenched it. I don't feel much different than I did before. He wasn't sure what he'd been expecting, but he figured that after accepting the darkness within himself, he would feel slightly different, like maybe he'd be more angry or something. But no. He felt no different really. Well, maybe a bit more irritable. However, the hatred and anger he'd been expecting never came. A sigh escaped him. Naruto? A gentle, unsure voice called his name. Standing up, Naruto turned around and smiled at Yugito, who stood by the water's edge with a grinning Kirabai. The worried look in Yugito's eyes did him a world of good. Hey! He swiped his nose with his thumb. I'm back. You know, fighting my own darkness was easier than I thought. Yugito stared at him for a moment longer, then clutched a hand to her chest, took several deep breaths, and gave a relieved sigh. She looked back and offered him the brightest smile he'd seen yet. I'm glad you were able to accomplish what you came here for. You did it, you fool. Beating your own darkness is the sign of a true man. That's 'cause it means it was all in the plan. You be fighting on land, making a stand. Fool you fool. Kirabai began rapping, ruining the moment between Naruto and Yugito. The look on the Nibi Jinchuriki's face made him snicker. She looked very much like she wanted to punch the guy's lights out. If it's not too much trouble, I'd like to stay here for a few more days to test out my hybrid mode, Naruto said to them. I haven't used it to its full potential yet because of Yami, so I don't know what it can do. That's fine, Yugito said after a moment of thinking. There's a training ground close to here that we can use. A spar should give you an adequate chance to learn the extent of your abilities. Right. Now that we're all ready, let's go and get heavy. We're gonna slam it down, go all out, make some noise, and scream and shout, Kirabai rhymed. Yugito could only release a heavy sigh as her fellow Jinchuriki rapped. Zox Naruto stayed on that island with Yugito and Kirabai for 2 more days, testing the limits of his hybrid mode. He was pleased to discover that he no longer had a time limit. Well, he did, but it wasn't because he could only keep it going for a certain time before losing control. His control was perfect. Now he only had to worry about running out of chakra. That said, his reserves were so large that Naruto could maintain his hybrid mode for 6 hours before they ran dry. After learning more about his powers, Naruto, Yugito, and Kirabai left. The several-day journey at sea was rough on Yugito, who really didn't enjoy sailing, or rather, had no ability to handle the rough rocking. Naruto spent most of his time comforting the woman as she leaned over a toilet. Once they arrived on land, the three of them, plus their entourage of Kumo ninja, began traveling back to Kumo. The sun was going down. One of the Kumo ninja glanced at the sun, and then looked at Naruto and the others. "Let's camp here for the night," he said. "We should be able to finish our journey tomorrow." "Sounds good to me," Naruto said. A night under the stars, gazing from afar. "What could be better on this journey together?" Kirabai added. "Please stop rapping," Yugito sighed. "Don't be dissing my rhymes, ya fool." The group quickly and efficiently set up camp. Several ninja went off to catch some fish, another built a fire, and the rest spread out the sleeping bags they'd be using. Since Kaminari no Kuni was rough and the ground was uneven, they couldn't set up a tent. Naruto and Yugito set their sleeping bags together near a large boulder. "Those two sure are late," one of the ninja said. "Think they got lost?" Another joked. "How many times have we traveled down this path?" asked the other. "There's no way they could get lost." His stomach grumbled. "I hope they're not having trouble catching any fish." As if the man's words were magic, the two ninja who'd gone out in search of food finally came back with a string of fish. They apologized for being late. That night, after everyone had eaten their fill, the ninja separated and went to sleep. Two people stayed up to watch the camp. The plan was to take turns watching the camp in shifts. Naruto and Yugito slept together, away from the others. Sometime during the night, Naruto woke up instantly when a brief killing intent surged around him. His eyes snapped open as a shadow appeared above him. Even while startled, he reacted swiftly, cutting through his sleeping bag with wind chakra and attacking the person hovering over him. Senpuken. His fist slammed into the dark figure. A surge of wind chakra sent the figure spiraling through the air before striking the ground with a harsh crack. Yugito, who had also sensed the killing intent, leapt to her feet, her long nails coated in dark purple fire. "What's going on?" A shout came from one of the other ninja. "Naruto?" Yugito questioned. "I'm not sure what's going on either." He shook his head before slowly traveling toward the body he'd launched in the air. The other ninja also came closer to the body, only to discover. "This is Madoba," one of the ninja exclaimed. "The one who went to catch fish?" asked Naruto. "The very same." The ninja frowned. "What was he doing? Why did he try to attack you?" "I don't know, but..." Naruto's hand flashed out just as the other ninja who'd gone with Madoba tried to leave. A small bullet of wind slammed into his leg, sending him to the ground. "I have a feeling this guy knows why." All of the Kumo ninja looked shocked by what happened. However, they didn't have time to do anything as Naruto pinned the man to the ground. He'd already channeled chakra into his eyes, which caused them to become a dark amethyst. He glared at the ninja and sent a wave of killing intent this man's way. "Who are you?" What are you talking about?" the man asked. "You know who I am. Why are you attacking me?" Seeing that Naruto's cold face remained unchanged, the ninja looked at his fellow Kumo ninja. "What are you all doing just standing around? This Konoha ninja is attacking me without provocation. Help me." "Do not think that's going to work." Naruto narrowed his eyes as he sneered. "I'll admit, your disguise is almost perfect. Even with these eyes of mine, I can't tell the difference between your chakras. It's the exact same as the guy who went to get fish. However, while you seem to have the incredible ability to change your appearance and chakra, you can't change your scent. Who are you?" His words caused the Kumo ninja to glance at each other. Naruto ignored them as he placed a hand on the man's chest and shoved his chakra through the person, jolting them. As the man screamed, all the Kumo ninja except Yugito and Kirabai pulled out their weapons as if to attack him, but then they paused as the man suddenly transformed. His dark skin became a pasty white. His body was deformed. The entire left side from his foot to his face gave him a plant-like appearance. He had green hair and yellow eyes. "This is Zetsu?" Naruto blinked. "No, Zetsu is supposed to be black and white. Who is this? What's going on?" asked Yugito. "This person." Naruto gestured toward the struggling man. "He looks almost like the man called Zetsu, a member of Akatsuki. However, Zetsu has one black half and one white half, and his body is supposed to be surrounded by a Venus flytrap. This person looks like what Zetsu would if someone tore him in half." "I'm not sure I get it," Yugito admitted. "Neither do I." Naruto thought for a moment before turning to one of the ninja. "Hey! Go to where these two were catching fish and see if you can find anything unusual." "What I mean, yes." While the man appeared startled that Naruto was ordering him around, he quickly did as he was asked and rushed off. Naruto and the others waited for the man to return. While they did, Naruto knocked the person beneath him unconscious and sealed both him and the deceased body of the other imposter into a scroll. The man who'd gone out returned several minutes later. "It's just as you said," he reported. "We found the bodies of Matoba and Aishiki. It looked like someone had slit their throats from behind." The words startled everyone present, and Naruto didn't doubt they all understood the implications. Not a single one of them had suspected these two were imposters. Even Naruto hadn't realized it until he sensed the negative intention of the one who tried to kill him. Of course, now that he knew what to look for, he would rely on his sense of smell to sniff out any imposters. "Let's return to Kumo and report what happened to the Raikage," Naruto said. Yes, everyone agreed. Since they had no designs to stay the night anymore, Naruto and the others packed up their camp and began racing off again. They made good progress. None of them slept or ate as they ran through Kaminari no Kuni, all to reach Kumo in record time. However, when they arrived, it was to find Kumagakure in a state of emergency. "What's going on here?" asked Yugito. "Looks like something serious happened, yo," Kirabai said. They were right. Ninja were rushing all around the village when they arrived, and it looked like several buildings had been destroyed. Naruto looked over at what appeared to be relief efforts to help people who'd been trapped by rubble. Several ninja were removing large chunks of sediment away from a group of civilians. There were also even more ninja patrolling the village. "Lord B. Lady Yugito. You've both returned." One of the passing ninja recognized them and rushed over. "The Raikage said he wanted to see you the moment you came back from Turtle Island. You should head over to his office." "We'll go there now," Yugito said without pause. The group quickly traveled up to the Raikage's office, where the leader of Kumo was currently having a heated discussion with a dark-skinned young woman. Naruto didn't know what they were talking about. The moment he, Yugito, and Kirabai entered the room, quieted down and glanced at them. "I see you three have come back," he said with a heavy grunt. "The situation here is pretty serious, so I won't ask for your report. Several of our own ninja have betrayed us. We don't know why, but a number of them planted explosive tags at some of the residents to our more prominent civilians. Right now, Kumo is in an uproar over what happened. We're trying to calm everyone down, but things aren't looking good." Naruto and Yugito glanced at each other when they heard this. Given what happened to them on their trip here, both of them were sure that what happened here wasn't a betrayal. "Actually, Lord Raikage," Yugito said, "we don't think the ninja who planted those explosive notes are traitors. In fact, they might not even be your ninja." "What?" I narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean? Speak clearly so I can understand." In response to this man's words, Naruto pulled out a scroll, set it on the ground, and unsealed the two bodies. The Raikage's eyes widened when he eyed the dead Kumo ninja. However, it narrowed when he saw the strange white person who didn't look quite human. As Naruto took a step back, Yugito explained what happened when they were traveling home. "So you think these things have disguised themselves as my shinobi to perform acts of terrorism?" Said as the dark-skinned woman behind them gazed at the two bodies in shock. "We believe it's more than likely," Yugito said. The Raikage grunted. "This is just great. It seems we're having to deal with one problem after another." Giving the bodies a displeased glance, he looked at the dark-skinned woman and gestured to her. "Have the corpse analyzed and send the one still living down to the interrogation chamber." "Yes, Lord Raikage," the dark-skinned woman said as Naruto resealed the two bodies and handed it to her. The woman grabbed the scroll, bowed to the Raikage once more, and then exited the room. "Ha!" After releasing an intense, deep breath of air, I looked at the three of them. The grave look he wore caused even Kirabai to straighten. "It seems there are numerous problems occurring around here. I don't like this situation at all." Naruto frowned at the Raikage's words, which implied that something more than just the current problems they knew of had happened. He remained silent. Even Kirabai wasn't talking, which was a clear sign of how serious the situation was. "We're not the only one who's having this problem," the Raikage said at last. Naruto's heart leapt into his throat, but didn't seem to notice as he continued speaking. "Konoha, Kiri, and even Suna have all had the same issue. Several of their ninja appear to have gone rogue and caused damage to their villages. However, if what you said is true and it's actually these strange creatures that are infiltrating the village, then it means someone out there is gunning for us. The problem is I've never seen anything quite like this. I'm not sure what to make of it." As the Raikage became silent, Naruto glanced at the other two. Yugito and Kirabai were both silent as well. Not only were they unwilling to speak, but they both had a grave and fierce demeanor. It seemed they had no idea what to do about this situation. He took a step forward. "I think we should contact the other villages. Let everyone know what we know. If we can pool our resources and intelligence together, then we might be able to discover where these white plant-like people are coming from. If we can follow their trail, I'm sure we'll also discover who is behind this. I nodded. I don't have any other ideas, so we'll go with that. I'll be heading back to Konoha, Naruto added. I'll get in contact with Jiraiya's spy network again and have them focus on discovering more about these white people. In that case, take Yugito with you, I said. The two of you make a great team, so it would be a shame to split you up. Yugito placed her hand against her chest and gave the Raikage a swift bow. Naruto nodded. As their goals solidified, he began thinking of what he needed to do: report to Konoha, contact the spy network, locate where these white plant-like people who resembled Zetsu were coming from, and discover the location of Orochimaru. It was a tall order. However, somehow, he believed that all of these incidents and tasks would lead him to the same place. Call him crazy, but he was almost 100% positive that these white Zetsu-like beings were somehow related to Orochimaru. After passing through Kaminari no Kuni, Naruto and Yugito slowly made their way toward Shimo no Kuni. Their plan was to pass through Shimo no Kuni into Yu no Kuni before heading into Kami no Kuni and then going straight to Konoha. It took about 1 week to leave Kaminari no Kuni starting from Kumo. It took about 4 days to pass through Shimo no Kuni. Having mostly camped out for the past 2 weeks, neither of them were in the mood to sleep outdoors anymore. They decided to head into the nearest village. The small village was somewhat close to the border of Ta no Kuni, but Naruto wasn't overly bothered by this. Otogakure had been abandoned a while back. Several Anbu had led an assault on the village, only to discover that all of the shinobi and Orochimaru's experiments had disappeared without a trace. Glancing around at the basic wood structures, Naruto wondered if this village even had a name. There'd been no sign when they entered, and it didn't look like this place was large enough to be called a city or town. He could actually count the number of buildings this place had. 652. That was a relatively small number. This place probably wasn't even 10 kilometers in size. It might be more accurate to call it a village. I think we should first find a place to spend the night, Yugito said. After that, how about we get something to eat? Sounds like a plan to me. Naruto walked with his hands behind his head and eyed the people of the village. His smile slowly turned into a frown. Hey, is it just me, or do the villagers seem wary of something? Yugito paid closer attention to the villagers they passed. Many of them were rushing from place to place, looking at anyone and everyone they walked by. The two of them received a number of suspicious looks themselves. Naruto couldn't help but notice the dagger-like stares they got from passers-by. That said, no one came up to them. You're right, she said at last. Everyone seems nervous for some reason. What do you think is going on? Don't know. Naruto cocked his head to the side. But maybe after we get a place to stay and some grub, we can do a bit of investigating to find out. Yugito looked uncertain. I don't want to spend too much time here. We should be trying to get back to Konoha as soon as possible. But given the current situation, the reason these people are so tense could have something to do with those white people. Those were my thoughts exactly, Naruto said. The two of them quickly found a hotel to stay the night in, and then they headed off to find a place to eat. It didn't look like this place had that many eateries. Certainly, when compared to Konoha or even Kumo, this place was lacking. He guessed that was to be expected in such a small village. After looking around for a moment, they entered what appeared to be a pub. It looked like a normal building from the outside. At just a glance, it was the same kind of building as many of the others. The difference was that hanging over the door was a sign that read Ma's Grub and Pub, denoting just what this place was. As they walked in, Naruto took a quick glance around the interior, noting that it didn't have the dingy setting that some pubs he'd been to did. The well-lit room had several round tables that numerous people were sitting at. A couple of booths also lined some of the walls. He wouldn't say this place was big, but it did have a large enough space that it could probably fit at least 200 people and still have some space left over. There wasn't anyone present to greet them when they entered. Naruto and Yugito walked further into the pub to find a place to sit. Along the way, several people glanced at them with hard eyes. The suspicion present in the gazes of the pub's patrons set Naruto on edge. While none of these people were shinobi and therefore posed no threat, the fact that they would glare at two shinobi, whose headbands were on clear display, caused an uneasy feeling to settle in his stomach. He found a table close to the center of the room, which they decided on after some debate. Yugito wanted to sit in the furthest corner from the entrance, where they would have a clear view of the entire room, but Naruto vetoed that idea. If we sit where everyone else is, we'll be able to listen in on their conversation, Naruto explained. We might learn something. While Yugito wasn't keen on sitting so close to people who might turn hostile, her words, not his, she also recognized that he had a point. Thus the two of them chose a small table that could seat four and waited to see if someone would come to take their order. Hey, those two are ninja, aren't they? A voice said as they sat down, causing Naruto's ears to twitch. Yugito must have heard them too because she perked up. They've got those headbands, so they must be ninja, right? I think so, another voice murmured. You don't usually see ninja around these parts. Wonder what they're doing here. Maybe they're here to cause more trouble. Naruto cocked his head gently and strained his ears, not just listening to the conversation, but tracing the sound back to the owners. It sounded like the people talking were behind him. He couldn't tell where exactly, but that was unimportant. What he really wanted to know was why those two thought he and Yugito would be there to cause trouble. This small village had nothing worthwhile in it from what he'd seen. Causing trouble here would just be a waste of time. At that moment, Naruto decided to hail down a barmaid who was wandering between the tables. She was a plain girl. He wouldn't call her unattractive, but he wouldn't have called her gorgeous either. She had normal brown hair, light skin, and brown eyes. Her body was about what he'd expect from a civilian. In a small village like this, she'd probably be considered the flower of the village. "Excuse me," he said after the woman finished putting down some mugs on another table. "Could my friend and I have 2 jars of warm sake please?" The woman appeared somewhat startled when she saw the headband, but she nodded a couple of seconds later. While curiously glancing between the two of them with a frown, she said, "Sure thing. Your sake will be out in just a minute." The barmaid drifted between tables and vanished through a door near the back. Naruto and Yugito didn't talk much during the wait. To be honest, they had run out of topics to discuss on the way to this village. Traveling for 2 weeks with nothing new to talk about meant they had basically exhausted all conversational topics. Most of their time not spent traveling had been spent sleeping together. That was okay. Naruto found he didn't always need to hold a conversation. Silence was good sometimes. "Here you are," the barmaid said as she came back, setting down 2 jars of sake and 2 drinking saucers on the table before them. "Thank you," Yugito said softly as she grabbed a jar and poured some for Naruto. The barmaid didn't respond to Yugito's thanks as she eyed the two of them. "You two are ninja, right? That's what those headbands are for, right?" While Yugito was a bit startled by how forward this woman was, Naruto, who had more experience with small-town bars like this thanks to Jiraiya, responded with a smile. "That's right. My friend is from Kumagakour, and I'm from Konohagakour. So you're both from different villages." The woman cocked her head to the side as she considered this. Then she shrugged. "Well, if you two are ninja, does that mean you're here because of the rumors about the white men?" While Yugito perked up, Naruto tried to maintain his nonchalance. He raised an eyebrow at the girl. "White men? You mean you haven't heard?" The barmaid's eyes flashed a bit as she leaned down and cupped a hand to her mouth. This forced Naruto and Yugito to lean in so they could listen. Rumor has it that a large army of white men were spotted marching through Tetsu-no-Kuni a few days ago. This is just a rumor. However, people have been saying that these white men are able to take on the appearance of other people. Someone said that one of his good friends had been acting a little strange recently, and it turned out that one of the white men had killed and replaced his friend. While Yugito appeared intrigued by that last statement, Naruto discarded it as a silly rumor that had been propagated by the first piece of information. Stories like that always came about whenever some interesting new rumor spread. It likely wasn't true. What probably was true was the first rumor about white men marching through Tetsu-no-Kuni. "When did this rumor start?" asked Naruto. "About a week ago," the barmaid said after thinking about it for a moment. "Word on the street is that the white men attacked and completely destroyed Tetsu-no-Kuni's samurai army before making their way south. But nobody knows if that's true or not." The words startled Naruto enough that he finally showed emotion on his face. His reaction seemed to amuse the barmaid. She giggled and, as if shocking him had been her goal, she departed with a sway in her hips that hadn't been present before. Naruto took a deep breath. "Do you think what she said is true?" asked Yugito. "Which part of what she said are you talking about?" asked Naruto as he took a sip of sake to calm down. "All of it." Grabbing one of the jars, Naruto poured Yugito some sake, and then took another sip from his own saucer. "The part about one of the white men replacing some random jabroni's friend is probably fake, but the part about these white men marching through Tetsu-no-Kuni is likely true." "What makes you say that?" asked a curious Yugito. Naruto didn't speak at first, instead choosing to collect his thoughts and remember what Jiraiya had taught him about information gathering. Whenever something happens that sends ripples across the elemental nations, it always invites people to tell tall tales in order to get a reaction out of others. People will do anything for those 15 minutes of fame. It's likely that someone heard about how the white men can transform into other people and made up a story about one transforming into his friend. However, since these white men would have no reason to do that, it is likely false. That said, a rumor like these white men marching through Tetsu-no-Kuni is too big to be false, so it's probably true. Yugito nodded as she took a slow sip of her sake. A quiet moment passed in the bar, at least between the two of them. Conversations were still going on all around them, and Naruto made sure to keep his ears open in case someone said something interesting. He did learn through some of the conversations that the story about someone's friend secretly being a white man was why the village was so wary. As the silence between them spread, Yugito seemed unable to maintain her silence. "What should we do about this?" she asked. "We might want to consider taking a detour," Naruto admitted after thinking about what they had learned. That woman said the army of white men was marching south from Tetsu-no-Kuni, which means it is heading toward Hi-no-Kuni. If we hurry, we can probably reach Tetsu-no-Kuni's border before this so-called army passes through. "Can't you just use your clones to do reconnaissance while we travel to Konoha?" asked Yugito with a strange look on her face. "Oh." Naruto blinked. "That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that." Obviously. Yugito's response to his words was to roll her eyes and smile. Zoxta-no-Kuni was a land filled with numerous small mountains, rice paddies, and winding roads. Some forestry was mixed in between the rice paddies, roads, and mountains, but the amount of forest was nothing compared to Hi-no-Kuni and some of the other nations. This small nation had supposedly been taken over by Orochimaru at some point in time when he established Otogakuer. Within this small nation, 16 shadows cut a path through the land. These shadows moved so swiftly that anyone passing would have seen nothing but several blurs. They'd been running non-stop for the past several days. Their destination was unknown to everyone but them. These shadows leapt through trees, ran along the ground, and even ascended over mountains in their path, cutting through the entire nation to reach Tetsu-no-Kuni in record time. The warm weather dropped as they moved closer to Tetsu-no-Kuni. Rice paddies were eventually replaced with snow. Tetsu-no-Kuni was a cold land. The trees were all frozen over, with no leaves hanging from their branches. It was surprising this place even had trees, but perhaps the snow would melt during the summer and provide nourishment for this seemingly dead vegetation. As one, the group suddenly stopped moving when the shadow in front sensed something up ahead. When the shadows stopped, it revealed who they were. All 16 figures looked identical. They had the same spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker marks on their cheeks. These figures were, of course, the shadow clones that Naruto had created. "I sense a lot of chakra signatures up ahead," the lead clone said. He had nicknamed himself Alpha since he was in charge. He called the rest of the clones Beta, followed by a number. "Should we check it out?" asked Beta 1. "Of course we should." Beta 4 rolled his eyes. "Isn't that why we were created?" "But what if it's not those white men?" asked Beta 2. "Given the number of chakra signatures, I do not believe this can be anything but that army of white men," Beta 14 said. "Let's find some higher ground," Alpha suggested. "It will give us a better vantage point to observe the moving chakra signatures." "Yes." All the betas responded. Tetsu-no-Kuni was covered in numerous large mountain ranges, some of which looked like they could pierce the sky. One particular geographical location, the Three Wolves Mountains, could be seen from a distance as they ascended one of the smaller mountains. However, it was so far away that it looked like nothing more than a speck. Actually, the fact that they could even see it from several hundred kilometers was a testament to its impressive size. However, there was something even more attention-grabbing than the Three Wolves Mountains. "Holy!" Beta 6 mumbled. "Shit," Beta 9 finished. "Holy shit is right," Alpha thought, though he did not say anything out loud. He could understand why the others said that. Indeed, he felt much the same way. The sight before them was just that shocking. Far beneath their feet, marching forward at a slow but steady pace, was a large army of white figures. They were completely naked but seemed immune to the cold. While one half of their body looked mostly normal, the other half was twisted and distorted, resembling more of a plant than a person. This army was composed of the very same people who'd impersonated several Kumo ninja and caused trouble. "How large do you think this army is?" asked Beta 4. Alpha did his best to calculate the size of the army, but it was really hard because this army was so large they couldn't even see all of it. They marched in a file of 5 lines, passing through the mountains, and there were so So many that it was basically impossible to take a head count of them. "There's gotta be at least 50,000, Alpha muttered. "However, I think there might be even more than that. So there's at least 50,000 of these white men," Beta 3 said as he bit his lip. "Hey!" Beta 8 suddenly pointed at something. "Look at the front of their formation. Those people aren't white men." At his cry, all of the Naruto clones turned their attention to the front where, indeed, several individuals who were not white men marched as though leading this army. There were 5 of them. One of them was a man with white spiky hair and blue armor, the one next to him was an old man wearing an all-black ninja suit, beside him was a man with spiky, silver hair that reached the middle of his back, there was a dark-haired man with tan skin and red armor. Finally, the last of this group was, "Isn't that Dad?" asked a shocked Beta 11. Indeed, walking alongside the other 4 people was a man with spiky blonde hair similar to Naruto's own, bright blue eyes, and a Konoha headband. Underneath his white Hokage haori was the standard garb of a Jonin. He wore a green flak jacket over a blue shirt. His blue pants were wrapped in white bandages near the calves and disappeared into his shinobi sandals. The only difference between him and normal Jonin, aside from his haori, were the 2 bands on both sleeves. "That is definitely our dad," Alpha said with a grim expression. "How can this be?" asked Beta 4. "I thought our dad was, he is dead," Beta 7 said. "Then I heard that when that bastard Orochimaru was battling against Old Man Sarutobi, he summoned the first and second Hokages using some kind of jutsu," Alpha said. "That must be what happened here." He frowned. That said, Uro-Sennin also mentioned that the first and second Hokages had been sealed by the Shikifujin, dead demon-consuming seal. It shouldn't be possible to summon them again unless I'm missing something. As the Naruto clones all spoke, the army that had been marching suddenly paused. In that moment, Minato Namikaze glanced up at them. Alpha felt all the hairs on the back of his neck prickle. However, that feeling disappeared, along with him and the others, in less time than it took to blink. The mountaintop was soon covered in smoke. Zox, Naruto and Yugito were racing through Hinokuni, leaping across tree branches like a couple of frogs jumping across patties in a lake. They moved swiftly, their figures nothing but streaks as they headed for Konoha. 2 days had passed since they left Hinokuni. After spending a single night in that small village where they learned of the White Man Army, the 2 had decided to rush back to Konoha post-haste, though not before Naruto had created several shadow clones to check things out at Tetsunokuni. Neither of them had slept for those 2 days. While even most Jonin would have been exhausted by the pace they set, Naruto and Yugito were special cases and had far more stamina than the average ninja. As he landed on a branch and prepared to push off, several images flashed through his mind, penetrating his skull like bursts of lightning. The images were so surprising that Naruto actually slipped. He screamed as he fell from the tree and slammed headfirst into the ground. Whiteness blocked his vision for a second as pain overrode his ability to see. When the pain dulled, he discovered that he was lying on his back and staring at the canopy of trees. "Are you okay?" asked Yugito as she landed on the ground beside him. "Yeah." Naruto groaned as he sat up and pressed a hand to his face. "I'm fine, but we need to hurry back to Konoha." "I know that." "No." Naruto shook his head. "We really need to hurry." Yugito didn't respond to his words at first, perhaps sensing that something had changed between now and when he had made his inelegant head plant. She helped Naruto to his feet. The 2 of them soon took off again, but this time, they poured on even more speed. "Are you going to tell me why we're in even more of a rush than before?" asked Yugito. "My clones were all just destroyed," Naruto said after a moment of silence. "All of them were destroyed in an instant. However, before they were destroyed, they managed to discover that a large army of those white men were marching through Tetsunokuni. Also what?" asked Yugito. Naruto's expression became increasingly grim. "Also, the army is being led by the previous 4 Hokages and a man who looks a lot like Kakashi." Zox. After hearing about what they were up against, Yugito agreed that they needed to hurry. That was why she used the power of her Baijuu to increase her speed. Likewise, Naruto activated his hybrid mode. Together, the 2 of them blitzed through the forest as quickly as they could, reaching Konoha in record time. Upon reaching the village, the 2 of them didn't even bother checking in at the gate, and instead hurried to the Hokage's office. They raced up the stairs and barged into the office without even knocking. Kakashi, who'd actually been sleeping with his head on the desk, was so startled that he nearly fell off the chair. "Kakashi! We have an emergency," Naruto shouted. Regaining his composure, Kakashi glanced at Naruto and Yugito, studying their expressions and harried appearance. After nearly half a minute of this, he sighed. Before you begin telling me about this emergency, why don't you both calm down? Naruto, you haven't changed back to your normal appearance, and Yugi, you are still covered in your Baiju's chakra. The two of them were startled for a moment, but when they looked at each other, they saw that Kakashi's words were true. Yugi was covered in a thick blue cloak with two tails waving behind her. Meanwhile, Naruto's hair had turned red, his eyes were purple, he was sporting claws, and his whiskers looked jagged. After seeing what the other person looked like, Naruto and Yugi swiftly changed back into their normal appearance. Kakashi sighed. I'm sure the village is in a panic right now thanks to you two. Sorry about that. Kakashi. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, slightly sheepish, before settling down. However, it really is an emergency. Given the number of emergencies we've been dealing with, I'm somehow not surprised. Kakashi rubbed his face. He looked even more haggard now than he had before. Does this have something to do with those white men? I guess I shouldn't be surprised you figured it out, Naruto said. I told us that Konoha was infiltrated by them already. Kakashi nodded. We managed to root them out once Sakura figured out that we could differentiate our shinobi from them based on the negative intent they leaked, but it did cause us a number of problems near the beginning. Yeah, well. This is an even bigger problem, Naruto said before he began explaining to Kakashi what he'd already told Yugi. While Kakashi was at first surprised, the longer his report went on, the more shocked the man became. When Naruto described the white-haired man who was with the four Hokages, the normally calm shinobi was paler than Naruto had ever seen him. Kakashi took several deep breaths, but each one came with a shudder. The man seemed unable to calm down. Naruto wanted to ask what was wrong, but he held himself back. When did your clones discover this army? Asked Kakashi. It was about 3 days ago, Naruto said. Alright. Kakashi was silent for but a moment. I'm going to call an emergency meeting between our top ninja and the ninja from Kumo and Suna. The situation you just described is indeed a dire one. Kakashi stood up and wandered over to the window. Naruto and Yugi glanced at each other, and then looked back at the current Hokage, who seemed to be having issues. Within this deep silence, Naruto stepped forward. Is everything okay, Kakashi? He asked. Yes. Kakashi turned around. Everything is fine. Naruto, go inform Temari that we're having a meeting and she's needed. Yugi, do the same for Drew. The meeting place will be the operations center in 30 minutes. While Naruto and Yugi were confused by the sudden change in Kakashi's demeanor, the two of them were smart enough not to say anything. They nodded and quickly parted ways to do as they were told. Zox Naruto arrived at the operations center with Temari and Do. While it was called the Operations Center, a grand name that suggested it was used to conduct meetings regarding large-scale missions and such, it didn't really look that impressive from the outside. It was a squat, one-story building. The bricks used in its construction were red. Like most of the buildings, a lot of wood was also used to build it, including the roof. Naruto and Temari entered the Operations Center to discover that a good number of people had already gathered. Naruto recognized many of them like Shikaku Nara, Yamato, Inoiki Yamanaka, Chozoaki Michi, Mitogai, and Shizune. Akane was with Yugi. Also present was Daru, the leader in charge of the Kuma forces stationed in Konoha. I'm glad you two are finally here, Kakashi said as he eyed them. Now we can start the meeting. The interior of the operations center was mostly just an empty space. In the center of the room was a large table that had an incredibly detailed map of the elemental nations. It was an impressive piece of work. Not only did it show where a good majority of the major and minor cities and towns were, but it revealed details such as elevation, mountains, caves, ravines, etc. Everyone was gathered around the table, so Naruto and Temari squeezed in beside Yugi and Akane. I received this information from Naruto just a little while ago, but it appears there is a large army heading toward Konoha, Kakashi revealed to everyone, causing a chill to enter the people present. Their faces became stiff as the copy ninja continued. According to his report, their numbers are no less than 50,000. Everyone glanced at each other in shock. What's more, the army is being led by 5 Konoha ninja who have been reincarnated using the Kushios, Edo Tensei, summoning, impure world reincarnation. At those words, numerous bodies stiffened in shock, their backs going ramrod straight. Everyone knew about that jutsu, which had been used during the assault on Konoha back when Naruto was taking the Chunin exams. Edo Tensei is a powerful forbidden jutsu that binds the soul of a deceased person to a living vessel, restoring them as they were when they were alive in order to do their summoner's bidding. Shikaku rubbed his jaw. Because it is a forbidden technique, very few people know of it, and even fewer people can use it. What's more, it is strictly a technique of Konoha. That means... Right. Kakashi nodded. It means the person who created this army and summoned these ninja is likely none other than Orochimaru. With all the trouble Orochimaru had given them lately, it was no wonder the ninja inside of the operations center listening to Kakashi were agitated. Naruto glanced at Shikaku, Inoiki, and the others. All of them had pale faces filled with concern and anger. "Who are the people that Orochimaru has summoned this time?" asked Inoiki. The grave expression on Kakashi's face was more than enough to make everyone wary as he said, "They've summoned the previous 4 Hokages and Sakumo Hatake." An unsettling atmosphere pushed down on everyone. Tension filled the air like a thick fog. The news that an army of 50,000 was marching toward Hinokuni was grave enough, but adding the news that the 4 Hokages and a famous ninja with cage-level strength was leading them was like adding salt to an open wound. "This is pretty bad news, isn't it?" asked Temari. "Do we even have a plan of action to deal with this?" "We do. Well, kind of," Kakashi sighed, paused to collect his thoughts, and plunged on. "Right now, Konoha does not have the kind of numbers required to fight against such a large army. The first thing we need to do is gather together more forces. I was hoping that you, Temari, and you, Daru, could inform the Kazekage and Raikage about what is happening and request them to send aid. From what Yugito said, it sounds like Kumo has experienced trouble with members of this army in the past few days," Daru said with a shrug. "I'll send a messenger bird to Kumo and ask them to send forces to back us up. I know Gaara will definitely send help when I tell him about what's happening," Temari said as she crossed her arms. "I'll use our messenger hawk, and then gather the forces we currently have stationed here. Do we know where the army is now?" asked Shikaku. Kakashi looked at Naruto, who realized what the man wanted and stepped forward. Everyone glanced at him as he took center stage. Using a shogi piece sitting next to the map, he placed it where Tetsu no Kuni was located. "When my clones saw them, they were traveling through the mountains of Tetsu no Kuni. They were going south toward us. Given their current speed, I estimate they've reached the border of Hinokuni by now." He moved the shogi piece until it was sitting right on the border. "That said, the reason they move so slowly through Tetsu no Kuni is likely because of the rugged terrain and cold weather. Once they enter Hinokuni, their speed will probably increase." "That's a reasonable assumption," Shikaku mumbled. "In which case, they should reach Konoha in about 2 weeks. Even if they can move faster once they reach Hinokuni, an army that large can't move that fast, especially if they want to maintain their formation, which is the purpose of attacking with an army." Kakashi nodded. "However, we don't want them to reach Konoha. We have to gather our forces and head out to meet them. That said, our forces are not nearly as large as this army's. We'd lose in a head-on battle. That's not even taking the ninja leading them into account," Shikaku muttered as his brow furrowed in concentration. 50,000 ninja is a tall order for any one village to defeat. However, leading them are the previous 4 Hokages. Minato Namikaze alone is a man who was capable of decimating entire armies by himself. Even if we could gather a force of 50,000, we would still lose. You do not need to worry about the 4 Hokages." Akane suddenly stepped forward. Everyone glanced at the redhead as she smiled, though most of the glances were merely curious. No one actually knew who she was aside from Kakashi and Shizune. Tsunade had decided to keep knowledge about Akane being the nine-tailed fox a secret. While a few people had seen her enter a sort of hybrid form, where her tails and ears were visible, during the battle against Kumagakure, most people had dismissed it as a unique transformation. After all, the Kyuubi was a monster of mass destruction. There was no way such a beast could be a beautiful young woman. "I'm guessing you have a plan to deal with them?" asked Kakashi. "If you do, I would be glad to hear it." With an elegant shrug of her shoulders, Akane smiled. "It isn't really a plan. I was merely telling you that you can leave the 4 Hokages and Sakumo to myself and Naruto." While Kakashi looked a little startled, the others in the room had the same expressions as someone who'd been sucker punched in the face. Chosa, Inoiki, and even Daru, Temari, and Yugito were gazing at her like she'd said something incredibly stupid. "Are you saying that the 2 of you will fight the 4 Hokages on your own?" asked Shikaku with a frown. "That's suicide. I'll admit that Naruto has grown incredibly powerful over the years, but that is a far cry from being able to contend with a Hokage. Hokages are ninja whose power and skill greatly exceeds that of average Jonin. I am perfectly aware of what a cage is." Akane gave the man a withering glare. "That is why I can confidently state that Naruto and I can handle this." Shikaku glanced at Naruto, then Akane, and then Kakashi. The frown on his face grew. Naruto could almost see the fire jutsu igniting in his head as he created theories and possibilities regarding the redhead. He didn't think Shikaku would get close to the truth without being told, though. Even if he was a genius, it took a large leap to conclude that Akane was the very being who nearly destroyed Konoha when he was a baby. "Are you certain the two of you can handle 4 Hokages?" asked Kakashi. "What's more, there is also Sakumo. My father might not have been a Hokage, but he was powerful enough to be a candidate for the position. If it weren't for his untimely demise, he might have actually become Hokage. You don't need to worry about that." Naruto backed Akane up. "While it is true that in a normal battle between us and the Hokages, we might not stand a chance, those 5 are only here because of the Edo Tensei. Aside from being a kinjutsu, it is also a highly advanced fuinjutsu. I'm positive I can create a counter-jutsu to eliminate the summoning. I just need to get my hands on the scroll and study it." While some of the people present didn't look pleased that Naruto wanted to view the scroll with the Edo Tensei on it, Kakashi nodded. "The jutsu is actually located in the Scroll of Seals. I'll lend it to you so you can study the technique and create a countermeasure. Let us say that Naruto and Akane do manage to counter the Hokages," Yugito began. "That still leaves the army of 50,000. Even I wouldn't be able to defeat that many ninja, and Jinchuriki were created for the express purpose of decimating armies. Fortunately, I do not think we need to worry about that," Naruto said. "While I don't know what abilities these strange white men have, I can tell you they are not frontline fighters. They will probably have some unique jutsu, but aside from that, they shouldn't be powerful enough to contend with a Jinchuriki." Naruto paused and cocked his head to the side. Of course, 50,000 ninja is still a tall order, and knowing Orochimaru, he's probably modified these people to have unique abilities that could contend with a Jinchuriki. "It will be important to provide you with support." Before anyone else could say anything, Kakashi suddenly spoke up. "Regardless of what plans we create, right now the most important thing is gathering our forces and heading out. Shikaku, I'm leaving the logistics and tactics to you. Come up with a suitable plan to counter this army. Any plan I make will be dependent on whether or not Suna and Kumagakura can send reinforcements, but I'll do my best." Shikaku nodded. "In the meantime, I want everyone else to prepare for battle. I'll be giving you your orders when our plans formalize." Everyone nodded at Kakashi's words. The man currently in charge looked at Naruto and gestured to him. "Naruto, follow me. I'm going to give you the Scroll of Seals. Learn everything you can about the Edo Tensei and come up with a countermeasure." "You can count on me, Kakashi," Naruto stated with confidence. The meeting soon adjourned. Everyone went their separate ways to fulfill the orders Kakashi had given them. Naruto followed Kakashi as the man led him back to the Hokage's office, his mind focused on learning everything he could about the forbidden jutsu that had a hand in taking Sarutobi Hiruzen's life. Zox the sun had long since gone down, but Naruto was still working hard, sitting at a table inside of the Hokage's mansion as he pored over the Scroll of Seals. This scroll contained many techniques, including the Tajuo Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu, and the Haki no Fun Shiki, 8 trigram sealing style, the very same seal used to seal Akane inside of him. Currently, Naruto was poring over the notes on how the Kushios, Edo Tensei worked. Releasing a tired sigh, Naruto rubbed his sore eyes. They felt strained from staring at the scroll for so long. If he were to look in a mirror, he was positive he'd see bloodshot eyes staring back at him. As he tried to get rid of the soreness in his eyes, a mug filled with steaming coffee was set on the table he was using. Naruto glanced at the mug, and then at Akane as she slid onto the bench beside him, a cup of coffee in her hands as well. "I figured you could use a pick-me-up," Akane said. "You might have the insane stamina of someone who absorbed nearly all of my chakra, but you are still fundamentally human and get tired." "Thank you." Naruto raised the mug to his lips and took a sip. It was bitter, but he tried to ignore that. He really did need the caffeine. "Have you figured out any countermeasures for the jutsu yet?" asked Akane. Naruto shook his head. "Not yet. I'm currently poring over the information so I can figure out how it works." Akane held her mug in both hands as though using the heat it emitted to keep herself warm. She took a slow sip, set the mug on the table, but still kept her hands on it. "And what have you discovered so far?" "Just the basics." Naruto turned back to the Scroll of Seals. To perform this technique, the user must first acquire the DNA of the person they want to reincarnate. Once they have the DNA, they smear it on a special scroll, which is activated and the remains spread out in the form of a seal with a living sacrifice in the center. According to the scroll, the sacrifice's chakra signature is completely overridden with the chakra of the one being reincarnated. The technique is said to have two flaws. The reincarnated souls are nowhere near as powerful as they were while alive, and only so many reincarnated people can be controlled at any time. Naruto paused after saying all this and leaned back a bit. Of course, given that this technique is being used by Orochimaru, I suspect he's made improvements to it, so some of this information might be outdated. Summoning the dead, Akane sighed and shook her head. You humans always love desecrating the natural laws of this world. I never did understand it. Me neither. Naruto gave her a helpless smile before he continued explaining the jutsu. It says here that in order to control the actions of the one summoned, the user must implant a special talisman within the reincarnation's brain. The talisman's design determines how strong the control is. At its most basic level, the reincarnated souls retain their personality, giving them the freedom to approach a given task however they like so long as it broadly carries out the summoner's bidding. At its strongest, the reincarnated soul's personality is eliminated. Naruto stopped speaking for a bit to take a few sips of the coffee Akane had given him. It was still warm, but the longer he let it sit there, the colder it would become. He had no desire to drink cold coffee. From what I've gathered, there are only 3 known methods to end the technique. The first is to remove the soul from the reincarnated body, the second is to have the summoner end the technique, and the third is to have the reincarnated soul be affected in some emotional way that gives them closure. Akane didn't speak for a moment. When Naruto looked at her face, he saw that she had narrowed her eyes as she stared at the scroll. Her brow was wrinkled slightly. This let him know that she was probably thinking about what he'd said. The first one sounds like the easiest method of stopping the jutsu, she said at last. Anyone who casts this jutsu isn't going to cancel the technique, which means you'd have to use a genjutsu to trick them into canceling it. Likewise, giving emotional closure to one who is already dead is oftentimes impossible. Naruto nodded. I've determined that there are other ways to defeat the jutsu. One method is neutralizing the talisman controlling the reincarnated person with a counter seal. The problem with this is I won't know what seal is being used to control the person who was reincarnated, so I can't actually create a counter seal. Another method is to bind their bodies with a binding seal. This method might actually be the easiest, but it also won't release the jutsu. Akane thought about his words for a little while. I think you should go with a binding seal. Even if you can't release the jutsu right away, so long as they can't fight anymore, we can find a way to release them later. I suppose. Naruto nodded. Anyway. Akane stood up, grabbed Naruto's hands, and pulled him to his feet. It's been several hours since you started reading that scroll. I think it's about time you got some rest. You can continue creating a counter seal tomorrow. Right. Knowing that Akane would probably fight with him on this if he refused, Naruto packed up the scroll of seals and grabbed it before she dragged him off. The next few days were filled with war meetings as Konoha rushed to gather their forces and prepare for combat. Naruto, whose only job this time was to create a means of countering the 4 Hokages and Sakuma Hotake, played no real role in these meetings. However, as one of the strongest ninja in the village, he still had to be there. He generally sat in the back and listened. I've received a message from Gaara, Temari said to the gathered group. He is currently in the process of gathering his forces. He said he'll be able to send an army of 5,000 ninja to supplement our forces. The meetings were still taking place in the operations center, but the table had been removed to make way for several chairs. Given how long these meetings lasted, Kakashi had decided it was better if everyone was sitting. The map had been pinned to the wall where everyone could see it. If we combine Tsuna's forces with ours, we have 10,000 ninja in total. Shikaku shook his head. That isn't a lot compared to the 50,000 of our enemy. I am aware of that. But it's all he can send. Temari shrugged. Our forces only total about 6,000 to begin with, not including Jinan. However, we can't send Jinan, and we need at least enough ninja to protect our village in the event of a sneak attack. True, Kakashi agreed with Temari's reasoning before turning to Daru. Has there been any word from Kumo? Daru scratched his head with an expression that was distinctly uncomfortable. The Rikage sends his apologies, but he won't be able to send reinforcements right away. It seems a second army of those white men have touched down in Kaminari no Kuni. They number about 20,000. The Rikage has gathered an army to confront them. This grim news caused those present within the meeting to look bleak. Naruto, who sat behind everyone as he watched the proceedings, crossed his arms and frowned. I'm guessing Orochimaru sent this army to keep Kumo from interfering, or maybe even to destroy Kumo outright. Shikaku rubbed his chin and thought. Are there any resurrected ninja leading the army in Kaminari no Kuni? I'm not sure. Daru shrugged. The Hokage didn't give me that many details, so I only know the estimated size of the army. That wasn't good news, but it wasn't like there was anything they could do about it now. They would just have to let Kumo handle that army. Since there wasn't much they could do on this front, the group switched from discussing Kumo's involvement in the matter to the army currently marching through Konoha. We've had several Anbu tracking the army for the last few days, Shikaku began. They've had to keep their distance due to the presence of the 5 ninja leading them. However, we have determined that their speed isn't much faster than when they were moving through Tetsu no Kuni. Our initial estimation that it would take them 2 weeks to reach Konoha was off by a week. It will probably take them 3 weeks. So our time to prepare was extended by a bit. Kakashi tilted his head. However, this could also be a trap to make us believe we have more time than we really do. Let's get our preparations done within the next 2 days and march out to meet them. Tamari, how long will it take Gaara to bring his forces over? Tamari needed a moment to respond. Given the size of the forces he is bringing and how they have to cross the desert, I'd say it will take a week to reach Konoha. We want to be out of here before then. Kakashi grew silent, then nodded. If you can, tell Gaara to meet at our battle encampment. We're going to create a line of defense near the Nikibutsu temple. I'll certainly let Gaara know to meet us there, Tamari said. The conversation continued. Kakashi's idea was that Konoha would entrench themselves near the Nikibutsu temple and engage the enemy in a defensive war. Their goal was not to win but to stall for time. Meanwhile, he wanted to have Gaara's forces curve around the enemy forces and attack from the rear. During the time where we're fighting defensively, Naruto, I want you and Akane to engage the 5 reincarnated shinobi and defeat them, Kakashi instructed. Have you come up with a method to counter to the Edo Tensei? I have, Naruto said. I've created several methods to defeat the jutsu, though some are more effective than others. That said, I believe Akane and I can defeat them. Good. Kakashi nodded. After Naruto expressed his confidence in being able to beat the Edo Tensei, Shikaku decided it was time to bring up another issue. Even if we defeat this army, that still leaves us with Orochimaru. We do not know where he is right now, and until we can take care of him, the problem he represents will continue to persist. I know, Kakashi said. That's why I plan on having Anko take charge of a team of Anbu to locate Orochimaru. We don't know exactly where he is right now, but we do know that he is likely somewhere in Tetsu no Kuni since that is where the army came from. I plan on using Anko's Tennojoa to have her locate him. Matters were quickly coming to a head. It was decided by Kakashi that after Naruto and Akane defeated the 5 reincarnated ninja, their goal was to meet with Anko, who would hopefully have Orochimaru's location determined. They would be in charge of defeating him. Just leave it to us, Naruto said as the meeting came to a close. Zox Kakashi was sitting in the Hokage's office after the meeting had ended when Shikaku entered through the door. The man stopped in front of him. While he maintained a respectful disposition, Kakashi could already sense some displeasure in the man. What is wrong? Asked Kakashi. Are you really sure it's a good idea to have Naruto face Orochimaru? Asked Shikaku. I don't want to say I have no faith in his talent, but this is Orochimaru we are talking about. That man has the strength of a cage. You aren't the only one who is worried about Naruto, Kakashi sighed, then presented Shikaku with an eye smile. However, I also have faith in his ability to succeed. He isn't just some random ninja. Besides, he also has Akane with him. Just who is that girl? Asked Shikaku. Studying Shikaku with his only visible eye, Kakashi decided that he should probably inform the man about Akane so there wouldn't be any surprises. As he told Shikaku about that woman's real identity, the man's eyes widened so much it looked like they would simply roll out of his sockets. By the time he finished, the Nara clan leader looked like he needed to sit down and have a drink. I see. Shikaku took in a deep breath. If what you said is true, then maybe they do have a chance. Kakashi gave the man his famous eye smile. I have faith in Naruto. I'm sure you've noticed it, but Naruto is the kind of person who others can't help but put their faith in. He is his father's son. That is true, Shikaku admitted. In that case, I'll leave this matter to them. If you'll excuse me. As Shikaku left the office, Kakashi eyed the pile of paperwork sitting on the desk. With the war approaching, he had even more papers that needed to be signed and sorted. His shoulders slumped. He couldn't wait for Tsunade to wake up so he could foist this job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. Being Hokage kind of sucked. Job back on her. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.